Start.
Awesome. Welcome to Project Management for Evaluators. I am doing the very, very fast version of Project Management for Evaluators. I'm going to just go through a couple good kind of basic tips on project management. It won't be enough for you to walk away kind of with those skills or those resources, but hopefully ready to learn some more about it and some links about where to go to do that. I'm just going to talk very briefly here because time is short, but the basic background here is that I am an independent contractor now. I have also worked within a large firm. And when I was with this large firm, I started learning about project management because we were doing hundreds of projects a year and they were really good at the end, but they felt really chaotic in how we got there. So I started learning project management. I started applying it there. And then I've been a little bit surprised how much of it I still use as an independent contractor. This is not stuff that has to be for large groups. When we talk about project management, we're really talking about any knowledge, skills, tools, or techniques that help you complete projects more effectively. There is a very structured discipline around this. I am not a structured discipline type of person. And so I've learned a lot about project management and I apply it much more flexibly. But the whole idea is that we're developing strategies for improving our projects. And if it's not improving our projects, then we're not probably doing it in a useful way. This quote comes from PMI, which is the Project Management Institute. They are the main kind of professional organization that does project management. They're kind of the holders of that discipline. There's a link to their website later in the presentation. They have a lot of really good stuff. They're going to be more structured though. There are things that you have to do and ways that you have to do it. And I've adapted a lot of that. So again, the point is to help our projects be more successful. And so a good first step on any project is to identify what are the things that, that you're trying to achieve. How do you know that a project has been a successful project? What does that look like to you and to your project? There's a few that are very common indicators of success. Did you finish it on time? Did you finish it on budget? Did you do a good job? Are you happy with what you produced? Do you feel like you gave it your best work? Are people happy with what you did? Did they like working with you? Are they satisfied? And then I always include this last one about stress too. I know, especially when I was with this large firm, we almost always got the project done well on time, but with a lot of stress. Stuff fell behind and all of a sudden we were pulling all-nighters and or compromising work on other projects to get one done on time. And if you're working like that, it's not very, I consider that a sign that I'm not managing my work successfully. I'm going to go through just real quick 4 things that I do on every project. I'm going to do them fast, but I'm going to provide you links where to learn more about each of these, and then a couple overall tips. You can't do project management without a work breakdown structure. You probably already do something like this on projects. You can't really start a project without knowing what the project is. In project management vernacular, it's a work breakdown structure or a WBS. And essentially it's taking your big project and breaking it down into its component pieces. What are the things that you're going to have to do to get from the beginning to the end? What are those chunks of work? There are a lot of different ways that you can structure it. There's no one right way. You do it the way you like it, the way it makes sense for you. But you kind of need this to do anything else related to project management. Ways that I use it once I have it, it gives me the basics of my work plan. I use it to do an estimate of project cost because I can look at each of those pieces and really think about what the costs of that task are going to be, what my timeline is going to be. It's a pretty simple view of the project, so it's a great way to build consensus. I should almost always show it in some form to collaborators, to clients, and say, this is what I'm thinking. Does this match what you were thinking? Did I miss something? Am I making assumptions about how that work is going to flow? I can use it to assign roles. If I'm working with other people, we can look at it and say, well, why don't I take this piece and you take that piece? I use it to track progress of how the project is unfolding. And I use it to prevent scope creep, which is something that I am, is always a challenge for me. I like to say yes to everything, and I've caused myself a lot of headaches by doing so. So it gives me a tool to go back and say, I've got to go back, I've got to put it into the work plan and see if it fits. The second thing I do on every project is some kind of a visual representation of the timeline. Again, there's kind of official project management lingo. This is typically a network diagram, or and you can also do a critical path analysis, which is a more specific version of that. But essentially, I take that work breakdown structure and I try to map out, what does that look like? What has to happen before something else can happen? What are all the things that I can be working on concurrently? How long do each of those things take? Where are there places where I can slide on my timeline a little bit and it's not going to cause me any problems at the end? And where are the places where I have to really make sure that I'm staying on task and on time? Because if I fall behind on that task, I'm going to run into problems at the end getting the work done. So I do something like that for every project. Every project I do some version of a risk management plan. And this is one of the ones that I think has been the most useful to me over time. I've worked on hundreds of evaluation projects. Not one has ever gone exactly the way we thought it was going to go at the beginning. There are things that go wrong. Recruitment takes longer than we thought. Stakeholders don't have consensus on something that we thought was clear. Data that we're going to analyze isn't ready for us. All kinds of things happen. I always do a risk management plan to identify what are the things that are likely to go wrong. Which of these are really critical to address? What am I going to do about it? Am I going to change my work plan to just pad and build in some room to accommodate those risks? Am I going to do something differently because of those risks? And how am I going to manage and monitor? I do those every time. And then the fourth one that I do routinely is a communications plan, which is, I think it's a basic thing, but what I have found is that often we're a little bit more ad hoc in our communication. So I try to be more planful about who needs information, when do they need it, how do they want it, and then I build it into the work plan and into my budget. I think, especially when I was with the firm, we didn't really budget for communications. And then when things started to go, when projects were going over budget or behind schedule, they would cut communications to save time and save money, which is the opposite of what we should have been doing at that point. So it's about building it in and planning for it. A few other just general tips: maintain historical documentation. I think it's really important to be tracking actual expenses and comparing them to your budget, tracking actual time and comparing those to your timeline. And when they're off, and sometimes they're going to be off, to take some of the time to reflect, so why am I off? Why did I think I could do that in 2 weeks and it took me 4? Did I do should I have known that? Should I have anticipated something? What do I take away from that for next time? I always do a debrief at the end of a project, where I take some time and just think about what went well, what didn't go well, what do I wish I had done differently, and what are the things, like what is the knowledge that I want to make sure to organize and maintain so that I have it going into future work. And then my other general tip is to balance structure and flexibility. I don't believe in having a structured approach that you do the same every time. Not all projects have the same needs. Project management should be saving you time, it should be saving you stress, it should be saving you money, and if it's not, it might not be scaled right. So I think being flexible and thoughtful about that approach. If you want to learn more about project management, I started by taking an introductory class. I took a one-day Foundations of Project Management class through the local university's continuing education program. I was so blown away by it. I took 7 more days and earned a certificate in project management. I think of all of the professional development I've done, that has been the thing that has changed my practice the most. A good starting point online is also that Project Management Institute. What you need to know about them is that they will have a lot of good resources, but they're going to make it sound a little scary. They're going to tell you things you have to have and you have to do, and you don't. And then the other resource that I want to share is like if you Google project management, you will find a lot of good stuff online. It doesn't tend to be specific to our industry. There's a lot of stuff about project management if you are a construction worker or if you are doing IT development. So I developed a set of tip sheets for doing project management if you are a researcher or an evaluator. They're on my website. I've got 8 up there now and 2 more that I will finish and post at some point soon. But those were my attempt to try to take kind of the best of the discipline and put it into a project evaluation context. So that is the 8-hour foundations class in 10 minutes, which is something. I feel like those novelists where they try to do like War and Peace in 3 minutes. So questions. We have just a little bit of time left. Are there any questions that I can answer or other resources that I can help share?
I had a question. What software do you use to do all these, to do your tracking? And do you use one of the apps or are you using Excel? Like, where have you found it to be most?
I use a couple different things. I use Airtable for some of the documentation and like my work, like project timelines and Gantt charts and stuff I do in Airtable. Budgets I really just do in Excel. So I have a couple different things that I use. I don't have anything that I use for all of it. And some of it is really just like a practice. Like some of it's just Word, like my risk management is a Word document almost always. To do some of the flow charts and stuff. I know like I've used things like Visio and stuff and I just throw them in Word most of the time. But I do use Airtable for some of the like the workflow stuff. Other questions?
Whoops. Okay, everybody's back now.
Okay.
We will be cutting back the next few sessions to 10 minutes. So letting everybody know that they'll be a little bit shorter. And I think that's good for the presenters and everybody who's just a little, you know, you get a little tired later on in these sessions. So anyways, this is round 6 and Elizabeth Grimm will be in the main room talking about networking to